soon.
Is this your first podcast?
As in, like, first episode, or
on this platform?
on YouTube?
No, on this. What is this? Streamlabs?
Oh yeah, no, I use this on everyone.
I got you.
So, hey guys, I'm Jordan Fromer. I believe in hunting hard, hunting smart, and having a fun time while doing it. And shooting limits, well, that's just the icing on the cake. I revel in the journey just as much as the successes it brings. From ducks to dogs to decoys and guns, we'll be talking tactics, strategies, and what it takes to get the job done. Load up and take aim. This is the Duck Gun Podcast. What's going on, guys? I'm Jordan from Duck Gun Chronicles, and I got my guest with me, Jake Latendresse. Probably said the name wrong, even though you told me how to say it, but thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jordan. It's for those of you that want to know, it's Latendresse. It's not one of those easy names to remember like Smith or Jones.
Yep. So, anyways, so what have you been up to this summer?
Well, today's been a really busy day. I've had this is my fifth Oh, there's my son. Step out of the way, Walker. Sorry,
Yeah.
buddy.
Still in the show.
Yeah, today this is my fifth podcast for the day. We started out with a big podcast that we do live and had some big guests, and then man, it just continued to perpetuate itself. So it's been a busy day. Other than that, I've been traveling, doing some duck hunting internationally, some filmmaking with Ramsey Russell from GetDucks.com. So that's kept me busy pretty much all summer with some international trips.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm a little bit jealous that you were able to get out there duck hunting already. And was it Australia, or is that where you went?
Yeah, we went to Australia a couple months ago, and then just several weeks ago, we were in Argentina. I had never been to either one of those countries to duck hunt, so that was definitely an eye-opening and learning experience for me, and made some new friends, and definitely saw some wild and crazy duck hunting down there.
Awesome. Awesome. So
Yeah,
five podcasts for the day. I mean, that's a pretty crazy schedule right there.
it is, and the first podcast was with Ted Nugent and Dr. James Kroll, and then I did one with Will Primos right after that, and then I did two back to back with Ryan Bassham from Sitka Gear, and now here I am with you. So yeah,
That's a
seems like a
busy
podcast kind of day.
yeah, that's a busy day. So I didn't know Sitka had a podcast. What's their podcast called?
They don't. Yeah, that's from ducksouth.com.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and Ryan Bassham was our special guest today, and I was co-hosting the show with Rocky. So look at my
Oh,
son.
cool. Gotcha.
Yeah,
So is that
yeah,
the End of the Line podcast? Is that what?
yeah. It's end of the line, but that's uh, this portion of the end of the line podcast is called The Climb, and it's a series of life history stories about people that have been through adversity and faced some harsh times in life and how they use duck hunting to really save their lives. Hey Walker, hold on. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Can you go upstairs, please? Please? Can you go sit on the beanbag? I didn't realize that was going to happen. Let me text my wife.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I actually didn't know he had another podcast. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but it's under the same, name and all that. It's just a different direction. There's one that's got a little more humor involved, and then the one we do has got a more serious life story behind it.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a little bit of dog training, trying to get my duck depression underhand and getting the decoys ready. And do you guys have early teal season where you hunt?
Yeah, we do. We do. I haven't honestly teal hunted in quite a long time. I'm usually busy. And late in August and September, typically I'm filming sheep hunts. In fact, I just got back a few days ago from the Yukon, where I filmed a stone sheep hunt. So most every year I miss the early teal season due to something like that.
Mm. Yeah, that's I guess you do a lot of traveling and a
Yeah, it's
lot of
tough.
those.
That's one of the tougher things in my career is having to juggle travel time and three children at home. And I'm very blessed to have a wife that's willing to support what I do and take care of the children while I'm gone and hold the fort down. And I had one night as Mr. Mom doing a solo parent thing yesterday, and I had three kids at home, and it was very, very difficult, and it made me appreciate my wife that much more.
Yeah, I can understand the sentiment on that. I actually have
Yeah.
my first child this year, and my wife works on the weekends a lot. And watching the kid by myself, I'm like, man, gives me some more respect for what my parents went through with us kids. So,
No question about it. I think being a mom is probably the toughest job on the planet, no matter where you are.
yep, here on that. So I guess right now is probably good enough time as any to jump into the lightning round. Usually, if you guys are a normal listener, we've been doing this at the end, and actually we switched to this or that, but this is kind of going to be a combination of the two today. So yeah, we're gonna do it right now. So let's jump into it. All right, what's your favorite waterfowl species to hunt? Ducks or geese?
Ducks,
All right,
greenhead specifically.
greenheads. Yep. And what's your home state for waterfowl?
Well, I was born and raised in Tennessee, but my home state for the last 27 years has been Colorado. But most of my duck hunting occurs on the Platte River in Nebraska, in western Nebraska.
Mm. So, which state is your favorite to hunt then?
Arkansas.
That's all over the place. So,
I love Arkansas, and I love small river hunting in Nebraska and Colorado for
awesome.
sure. Mhm.
And what brand ammo do you shoot?
Winchester.
Winchester Super X.
Winchester Super X.
Right on. What gun do you shoot?
I've been shooting the Winchester Super X2 for many, many years, and I just got myself a Super X4 this year. So it's brand new. Put it together with my son on a little video the other day. So anyhow, I'm looking forward to shooting that gun. It's lighter and apparently faster.
Awesome. And this kind of goes for kind of a this or that. So I know you hunt and you film. So do you prefer to be the cameraman or the hunter?
Anymore, I prefer to be the cameraman because I feel like I'm on the hunt. I've killed enough animals in my life that doesn't really bother me anymore. And being able to capture a moment with my camera, either in still photography or video, it means a lot to me.
Awesome. And going on that camera line again, do you prefer to shoot with? Well, I know what you shoot with, so I guess this might not fall in that category. But a DSLR or the prosumer type cameras?
Yeah, I shoot a red. I have two red dragons that I shoot with, and no question about it. From a video perspective, those are the cameras that I prefer to shoot, but they're not always practical and applicable to what I do. So, when I have to adjust to a DSLR, then I do that.
Okay, so the reds, I guess, they're in a class of their own, aren't they? So they're not considered DSLRs, but they'd be more comparable to a DSLR than
Y-
the prosumers.
Yeah, I think that I mean it's a block camera. It's a cinema. They were developed for
Mm-hmm.
cinema, and they shoot raw imaging, so it is in a class by itself. The red brand is, but they do, a camera's a camera. They've all got shutter speed, iris, white balance, and frame rates. So, you know, they're interchangeable lens systems. So, if you know how to run a DSLR, then you can run a red.
Cool, cool. And on that same note, what's your favorite lens?
Whew, that's a great question. I have two. I have one wide and one tight. My favorite big tight lens is a 600 millimeter f4 that I shoot. It's a Canon brand, and then I also like the. Um, I have a 14 millimeter super wide one f1.8 that I like to shoot as well because it gives me that big wide epic look.
You said how many millimeters did you say?
14 millimeters.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
My
it's
favorite actually is the Nifty 50. So I don't know how that would compare to 14 millimeter because
mm,
that's getting some pretty shallow depth
well
of
the
field.
Yeah, I shoot a 50 millimeter 1.2, and that thing is super fast. And I mean, you can get, I forgot about that until you mentioned the 50 mil, but that's another one of my favorite lenses, and I never leave home without it. It just gives you, some great soft depth of field and some good detail and the color and the quality of the glass is pretty awesome.
Awesome. This kind of goes on to some topics that we've been kind of have continued on the podcast from podcast to podcast. But one debate we've been having, or a couple, actually, all these are debates we've been having in our Facebook group. But do you shoot a full choke or a modified, or which one do you prefer?
I shoot a modified. Yeah, because we sometimes we hunt tight quarters. Sometimes I shoot an improved cylinder because we hunt tight quarters, and I like to get them close. Now, I carry a full choke with me, and if we have to get nasty, then I'm not afraid to do that either. But I prefer a modified or an improved cylinder.
Alrighty, and this might be a little bit of a different one since you say you don't teal hunt much, but um, when you teal hunt, do you prefer using teal decoys, or the other alternative is using hen mallard decoys?
No, I prefer teal. There's so many. All the decoy manufacturers now make species specific decoys to match, your target species. So, I mean, to me, it just makes sense to go out there. It looks, if it, even if it doesn't help, it looks better.
Alrighty, and then last one, what's your bucket list duck?
Oh, probably a sprig with a band. Yeah, a pintail drake with a leg band. I've never
There
killed
you
one
go.
of those, and that's definitely on my bucket list.
You've never killed one, or you've never killed one with a band.
I've never killed one with a band.
Okay.
Lots of pintails, but never one with a band.
Nice. I've never killed a pintail. That's on my bucket list, but
Ah,
we don't get them in northern Indiana. I mean, we do. That's a lie. We get them, but it's just like you don't have very many opportunities. Like we'll see a few a year, but whether you get them to decoy in is another story. So
sure. Yeah, we went to Oklahoma last year, and I didn't realize how many pintails were there, but man, we killed a lot of pintails in Oklahoma.
see, I think the place I see them the most, like as far as like not like personally, but I think they got a lot out in the west, like towards California. It seems like everybody in
Oh,
California is just
oh, the
getting loads
Sacramento
of
Valley is
mallards.
loaded with pintails.
That's
I
right.
was out there last year doing a documentary on a kid photographer out there, and he took me out to the Sacramento Valley Refuge System. And man, I mean, the photo opportunities for fully plumed pintails in the late season was incredible. Lots, I mean, thousands of them.
Awesome. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess let's go ahead and jump into the main topic. But before that, we do that. If you guys are just joining us now, I'm Jordan from Duck Gun Chronicles. Got my host. We'll try this again. Jake Latendresse.
You
Latendresse.
got it.
From Jake Latendresse Media. Dang it, messed it up a second time. And the Outdoor Cameraman Experience. So yeah, go ahead and let us know a little bit about us, and correct any mistakes I just said in your name, or and yeah, let's go from there.
Yeah, Jake. I'm Jake Latendresse. I'm a filmmaker in the outdoor industry. I've been at this for 17 years now as a filmmaker, 22 years as a still photographer, and I started out with the wild outdoors many years ago, and the following year in 2003, I hooked up with Jim Ronquest. And got a job with RNT, and have been filming with RNT ever since, every season. Haven't missed a beat. Jimbo's one of my best friends, and now I have my own established film production company called Latendresse Media, probably better known as Latendresse Media Collective. And I have a business partner named Jess DiLorenzo. She lives in Pennsylvania, and we run a podcast now called the Outdoor Cameraman Experience. So on that podcast, we try to stick to photography and filmmaking ideas. We talk to directors, producers, other photographers and filmmakers around the country, and relate it to the outdoors and the experiences that we all have. Because one of the I think one of the motivations behind it was that we get so many questions on our social media platforms asking about which camera to buy and how to do this and how to do that, what lens should we get, that we just started a podcast so that we could help inform people on a more liquid, maybe what's the term I'm looking for, on a video platform.
Awesome. So, kind of jumping back from that, I guess let's. How did you get introduced into the outdoors? Is it like a family tradition, introduced from a young age?
Yeah, so my dad started taking me hunting when I was 3 years old. I still have, in fact, as many hunts as I've been on with my dad, who's now deceased. I have one photo that I have from all the memories that we have hunting that still stands out. And if you go to my social media platform, you can see it. I typically post it at least once a year. But anyhow, he started me out when I was 3 years old. I grew up duck hunting in the Camden Bottoms. My first hunt was a squirrel hunt, and I progressed into it just like a lot of people. Went from squirrels to ducks, to doves, to ducks, to big game and deer. And really, the first hunt that I ever went on, I was only 3 years old. And believe it or not, I remember parts of that day. And I just remember being so overwhelmingly um, sucked into the game of hunting and the heritage and the way my dad taught me to hunt, that it just became the most passionate thing in my life, just like yours and everyone else's watching, hopefully.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely a cool story. So, from that young age, were you just always an avid hunter, like through your youth until you got into the media side of it?
Yeah, I've never stopped. I mean, it's always really been the most important thing in my life. I mean, I have a wife and children now, but I remember looking back when I was younger, when I first started shooting photos. I remember thinking, man, I got to figure out a way to do this for a living so that when I get married, my wife can't complain about what I do, because it's part of my living and how I support my family. And now that I have three children and a very devoted wife, it's a huge part of my it's my life now. So yeah, it's always been a part of my life and probably always will be.
Awesome. So, this is a waterfowl podcast, but we won't hold it against you on this answer. Do you have one type of hunt that is stands above the rest as far as when you go whatever you seek to do? Or
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think filming flooded timber hunts in Arkansas is probably the cream of the crop. I mean, it's not always on. When it is, it's something remarkable that happens. Not everyone gets to witness it. And, you know, whether it's five ducks that come into a tight hole in the timber or 3,000 ducks that land in your decoys in the timber, there's something really special about every one. And as I look back on my career, and think about the big groups that we had, in the decoys and flooded timber and tight holes and truly flooded timber, green timber in Arkansas. I can remember almost every one of them. And if I can't name them, if someone brings it up, I remember exactly what happened, even from 15, 16, 17 years ago. So there's no question that while I love to film all kinds of things and would have a difficult time if someone held a gun to my head and said, "This is the last thing you can ever film," what would that be? I can honestly say that I truly look forward to filming mallard hunts in the flooded timber. And again, let me say this, that duck hunting is where I cut my teeth. I've always been, even though I deer hunt, I sheep hunt, I hunt all over the world. Duck hunting is there's something about it that keeps pulling me back in. And even as a kid, I remember taking dead duck heads to class for show and tell, keeping a freezer, some of the shelves in my parents' freezer, deep freezer at home, full of duck heads and duck wings and feet, just because I wanted to go and look at the how beautiful they were. So
I don't
yeah,
know
it's
if
it's a big part of my life.
I don't know if that passed for show and tell anymore, but
No. Yeah, no, and I've thought about that actually a lot, but I remember one time taking a teal to a class, and it was in a Ziploc bag. By the end of the day, I'd shown it to so many people out on the playground. This was in kindergarten. And by the end of the day, it had ants all over it. My teacher was trying to get me to throw it away, and I was so mad, and I was so hurt. And I got my way.
Nice. So, kind of going back to the Arkansas, I hear so many people say that the flooded timber in Arkansas is awesome, and I'm gonna have to definitely get out there at some point. But going back to the role models, for me, my role model for hunting has always been my grandpa. And I'm very thankful for my dad taking me out fishing and camping when I was a kid. But for you said your father's was your role model in the outdoors. Do you have any other role models alongside of that from your youth?
Yeah, I mean, my hunting was a heritage in my family. It still is. I mean, I'm teaching my boys 4 years old now, and I'm starting to tap into that with him. But going back to my childhood, man, my grandfather hunted, my great grandfather hunted, all my uncles hunted, my aunt Mary hunted. It was just part of our lives and the way we lived, and I didn't know any difference. And so all those people, my grandfather, my uncle Harold, my uncle Don, of course, my dad were my heroes. And then there were some people within our duck hunting community, that were standouts and talented duck callers, or, they had the big bad boat when I was a kid, or they had the big bad truck. So there were definitely locals from my area in West Tennessee that I looked up to and still do today.
Awesome. That from what I know of Tennessee, my wife being from there, that definitely sounds like Tennessee. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I saw that. I wanted to bring that up too. I saw that the video you made with your kid, your son with the gun. That's a pretty cool video. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I really am sort of s- you know, reliving history with my son based on how my dad did things for me, because looking into my life, knowing how much I love to hunt and how much trouble it kept me out of, because probably like yourself and so many others that do hunt, you know, you get consumed with it, and you're going to go out duck hunt on weekends, and well, we weren't perfect. We're boys. Boys will be boys. Hunting, you know, gave us something to do, gave us something to focus on, gave us something to try to be good at, and all those things. So I really want to transcend that into my son. And while we see these duck hunter numbers go down, particularly in federal waterfowl stamp sales, I don't want to be the cause of that. I want my son to have every opportunity to decide whether he's going to be a hunter or not. I'm going to make sure that he enjoys it when he's young, so that there's some persuasion and influence there as he grows older. So that video was really meant for me, not so much to get out on social media and publicize it, although it got some attention, and I'm very proud of it. What was most important to me was that 25 years from now, my son can go back and watch that video, understand where he came from, and understand what my purpose was in developing that video, and hopefully he appreciates it one day and holds on to it close to his heart.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something that I've been thinking about a lot, with getting the younger generation. Like I said, I have my first kid nowhere near hunting age, my daughter. And then I have, some nephews that, they're older, but still, just kind of gets you thinking about the age and how to kind of introduce them to that. And I plan to bring my nephew along with me to sit in the blind this year. Obviously, he's 4 years old, so he won't be shooting anything. But you just kind of think about, like, when will they be able to get into hunting, and the excitement for them and for yourself.
To be honest with you, when my son was an infant, I used to, when I'd rock him to sleep in the glider chair, I'd have my phone on and I would have turkey hunting videos that I would show him because he was really stimulated. For some reason, I showed him all kinds of hunting videos, and I always picked the ones that were clean and weren't loud and obnoxious and all that. They had some sort of aesthetic value to them from a visual perspective, and he locked in on these turkey hunts. And so there was a period of time when he was even younger than 1 years old, on into up to when he was 2 years old, that we watched turkey hunting videos to put him to sleep at night, and he loved them. I mean, he would choose, he would say when he could start talking, turkey hunting videos and things like that. So those are the things that I did, and I'm under the theory that they're never too young to start. They don't have to shoot a gun until they're much older and responsible. But if you can get them started visually, then I mean, you've got all that stuff in the background in your room. That's stimulant, and they're going to ask questions every time my son comes down into my studio. He wants to talk about these deer or the skull behind my head or something, and I think that's all part of that process.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, kind of moving on to the period in your life where you move from just the hunter to being a filmmaker. So, how'd you know, or how did that transition come about?
Well, years ago when I first moved to Colorado, I was a rock climber and an ice climber, and I was getting into alpine climbing, which is climbing at high altitudes at a high speed and efficiency rate. And so I started taking a camera with me because one of my mentors, a world-class climber, he was taking pictures, and he was working as an ambassador for Patagonia at the time, the apparel company. So, I would go along on these trips, and we go climbing in different places, and I started taking photos, and then he would submit those to different publications for me. And one particular year, I think it was 1998, I was in Alaska climbing a mountain next to Mount McKinley or Denali called Mount Foraker, and I happened to snap a few shots as we were crossing the Kahiltna Glacier to go back to the landing strip where we were going to catch our. And when I got back, I saw these. This was back in the color slide days, way before digital photography was even a concept. And I sent these slides to some different publications, and lo and behold, publication on the cover of the North Face magazine, and got an opportunity to start shooting adventure stills for the North Face. And I mean, I was whatever I was, 22 or 23 at the time, and I was like stoked, man, just totally, you know, caught up in the moment, really proud of myself, gave me confidence to keep going. And all the meanwhile, I'd never stopped hunting. So, man, I just started taking my camera into the hunting woods, got a few photos published, and then some photographers that had seen my work had contacted me and encouraged me more. They became my mentors. One in particular, a guy named Clay Connor, who was a longtime contributing photographer for Ducks Unlimited, a photo editor for Ducks Unlimited. He really took me under his wing and offered support and some knowledge. And then, man, when I started seeing, videos coming out back in the videos in the early 90s and in the early 2000s, when DVDs and video sales in the hunting world really became prevalent. Like, you could go to Cabela's and find an entire section on hunting DVDs. That really caught my attention. So I bought a broadcast camera, applied my still photography skills to the video world, which is basically the same thing, and filmed a deer hunt in Nebraska. Sent the tape to Jay Gregory on the Wild Outdoors at the time. This was 2002, and he liked the hunt. He gave me the opportunity to come onto his staff, and I've been working alongside Jay ever since.
Awesome. So, kind of, from there, like, I guess maybe that's even a step back, but what kind of gave you the desire to film, or I guess maybe a better way of stating it, like, what is your goal in filming, when you're filming a hunt? I mean, obviously it's telling a story, but, kind of along those lines.
Yeah, I think there's a two-part question. The first question was valid. I think I've always been into art. I draw and I paint a lot. I don't expose that very much for whatever reason, but I think that's why I got into photography. And even going back to the Camden Bottoms, my best friend that I grew up hunting with, named John Wardlaw, excuse me, he uh he took pictures. Like, he had a little point and shoot camera, and then he bought a Pentax DSLR film camera. I remember looking through his photos one time going, "This is brilliant. You're taking pictures of every hunt that we go on, and now here it is 3 or 4 years later, and we've got all these really cool photos. I'm gonna go get a camera." That's really what inspired me to go buy a camera, and then I just sort of transcended my ability to compose something on paper, like drawing or painting, and turn it into a photograph, and it really just kind of caught on from there. And my goal now is to tell a story. I feel like, after 18 years of filmmaking, my job and my passion is to tell a story, be it about a dog, a person, an event, a location. My motto is everyone has a story. And so every time I pick up my camera, whether I'm going to shoot a still or shoot a video, some video footage or a video clip, my goal is to tell a story with every frame that I shoot.
Definitely can get on board with that. One thing that kind of made me think of, talking about those old photographs, definitely before the era of Instagram and social media. My grandpa, he was a big time upland game hunter, and these are actually his mounts. And he'd go with one of his buddies. I can't remember the name, and he was from southern Indiana, but they would travel the country going for pheasant, and one of his buddies would take a lot of photos, and he'd always kind of give him a hard time. This guy always wants to like take the photos, and he set up the birds to make them look nice and holding them and getting pictures with the dogs. But after the fact, being able to go back and look at those pictures, and I didn't get to go on those hunts with my grandpa. Any hunt that I went on with him was kind of local because I was a lot younger. But they're priceless, and you do kind of like search for that story. You're looking through them, and
Exactly.
you see like the loads of pheasants, and my grandpa had 4 English pointers at a time, and seeing him with his dogs, and I named my dog Chief. He's a Labrador, after my grandpa's pointer, Chief. And so, yeah, like you said, it's just the stories you can tell through photos are just amazing and timeless.
That's what it's all about. At the end of the day, you can throw the sponsorships out the window and the paychecks out the window, and you still have these memories that'll, that are captured forever. And that's what it's all about. And, for young filmmakers out there, even photographers, if you can tell a story with your camera, then you become of value to someone. And there's a niche and a market for that, especially with all the digital platforming and social media platforming going on today.
Yep. And then, along those lines, uh, something that I've kind of stole from Ben Potter that he said when he was on the podcast. He said that he wants to do duck hunting justice, and I just love that. And I don't know if I can coin the phrase now that he said it, but just with all the films, or mine aren't exactly films like yours are, but or photographs that I take, because there's just such a visual appeal to duck hunting. Like you said, green heads, they look awesome, and just being out in the marsh or the flooded timber, which I've never experienced, but just through that, it's awesome to try to tell the story and do duck hunting justice, and do it justice for the people that don't get to be out there. Or if you're looking at it yourself after season, somebody else's photos, and you're like, duck hunting's awesome. So
Yeah, Ben's a friend of mine. He's a really great guy. He's one of the best filmmakers in the industry. And I could not have said that better myself. To 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 have your goal as a filmmaker to be give duck hunting justice is very profound, because that's exactly what it is. You're trying to portray exactly what happens, because we get all these exhilarating, moments, and all this adrenaline, this rush that comes about us when these things happen. And most people don't understand what that's like, because they haven't experienced that themselves, or they can only go hunting one or two or three or four times a year. And the odds, the law of averages will tell you that something big isn't going to happen, when you hunt so infrequently. So people live vicariously through photos and video edits, or videos, or raw video, or whatever it is. And I think that's very true, and it's very profound what Ben said.
I agree. um, so we got kind of how you got into hunting and your kind of journey into filmmaking covered. So what do you got going on now?
Well, I'm just trying to do bigger and better things. I think, like, film is my trophy. And if when I do something that's fun, or it turns out what I think is good, then my next project, I want it to be bigger and better. So I think that's my goal. That's what I'm doing now. I'm working on a series, video series, with Ramsey Russell at getducks.com. And what he has is an international waterfowl hunting agency, where he books hunts for people all over the world. And I mean all over the world: Pakistan, Azerbaijan, Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, Mexico, all over Europe, Mongolia, all over Asia. And so what his whole story is that he survived an explosion, a propane explosion, when he was 15 years old, and it burned like 75% of his body. He had second, third degree burns on, and he went into a deep abyss personally that he couldn't get out of. He was totally insecure. He didn't want people to see him. He certainly didn't want people taking pictures of him. And he just felt like, people looked at him differently. And then, being a duck hunter, he really came back around full circle and came out of his shell as an adult. And it was really founded on his love for duck hunting. So he was able to focus on duck hunting. He started traveling all over the world to duck hunt and found a passion for it. And now, what we're doing is telling his story, and telling people, the story is why, how it saved his life, and what this world has to offer, because there's some fabulous duck hunting. I mean, in Australia, when we were there a couple months ago, we hunted some flooded red gums. Like, it's this environment, and you feel like you're in, like, Jurassic Park. It's really exotic, but then you've got these Pacific black ducks, which sound and act just like mallards do, coming into these flooded timber holes in Australia. And I'm just sitting there going, this is, I mean, it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. So, that's what I'm seeking. I'm seeking bigger and better adventures, and stories that are compelling, and I like to implement the human element into my films now.
Awesome. So something new that we're gonna start doing here on the show is kind of going into a deeper dive, and kind of like how we said, every photo kind of has a story. So I went through your Instagram and found a photo that I thought might need a little bit more detail, and kind of it goes along the lines of my love for for hunting dogs, but I guess I'm gonna have to. I'll show it to you on this screen, and then I'm gonna
Oh yeah.
so you know
Okay.
the photo.
Yep. Yeah, so that photo was shot in Arkansas, and I believe that was in, let's see, 2000. It's probably around 2006, 2005, 2006. There's a photo taken by Clay Connor, the guy one of my mentors in photography that I mentioned earlier. He was a longtime senior chief photographer for Ducks Unlimited. He's now the national marketing director for um, Express Boats in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And that was actually in a rice field right next to Jim Ronquist's home, and that's my deceased and very close to my heart dog. His name was Tanner. He was a Chesapeake Bay Retriever. He came out of the Boot Heel of Missouri. He was the strongest, most hard driven retriever I've ever had. He was trained. He was at a master hunter level. And I was a guide at the time on the Platte River in Nebraska and still shooting film for R&T as well. As I was driving back and forth between Nebraska and and Arkansas. And yeah, that's the story behind that photo. It's one of my favorites because my dog Tanner was, as you know, man. I mean, if you couldn't have a retriever, if you're a duck hunter and you can't have a retriever, then that takes the air out of it for me. I don't know about you, but I mean
Yeah,
that's
I'm the
that's
same
one
way.
of the most special parts of it, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way. I don't know, like after hunting with a dog, if I could hunt without a dog, and it's not because I'm too lazy to go get the ducks. It's because you know, half the time you really want to shoot them just so you can see your dog work.
Oh, exactly, exactly, and then they love it. They love going as much as we do. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, man, it's kind of like having a kid. If for some reason you have to leave your dog at home because your hunting buddies are bringing their dog, or you're, swapping leads with dogs or whatever it is. I mean, it's like, man, I don't want to leave my dog at home. I almost don't want to even go.
Yeah, I hear you on that. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments here, and we'll get to them. And for those that were listening, the photo was Jake with some mallards and his dog, a Chesapeake Bay, looking pretty epic in a rice field. So if you want to check that out, you can see that photo at Jake Landreth. Ah, man,
Latendresse. Yeah, Jake underscore Latendresse. That's okay, man. I was 13 before I could spell it.
and it'll be actually it's linked in the description. His Instagram's linked in the description, and it'll be in the show notes for the podcast too. So that'll make it easy. You won't have to try to spell it when I can't
There
even
you
say it
go.
right. So yeah, someone asked, what kind of duck spread do you hunt with, Jake?
Oh, I guess it depends on the location and what's going on. The two places I hunt the most, which would be the North Platte River in western Nebraska, we tend to hunt with larger spreads. Um, we use tangle free decoys, um, and then in Arkansas, we tend to use smaller spreads. We may go into the woods with a half a dozen decoys. We may even go in with two or three decoys, but we always have a jerk string or jerk cord with us on a bungee system, which I've always felt like is probably the most important tool that a guy can have, particularly when it's calm. Regardless of where you're hunting.
Do you go jerk rig over a mojo?
I do. I mean, if I can get away without a mojo or a spinner, then that's what I'm doing. I would much prefer to hunt ducks over a jerk rig than a spinner for sure.
Awesome. And Michael says, Jake, you will succeed. You can tell by your drive, passion for the sport.
Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
Somewhere in Wisconsin, when does your teal season open?
Ugh. I think early, like September 8th or something like that.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, man. Let everyone know where they can find you: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all the above.
Yeah, this is kind of long-winded. So I've got my I've got two Facebook pages, Jake Latendresse, which is my personal page, but I do a lot of my film and photography work on there. And then I've got my business page that Jess DiLorenzo and I run. It's called Latendresse Media Collective on Facebook. And then you can find us on Instagram, Jake underscore Latendresse, at outdoor or underscore cameraman, and then at Latendresse Media Collective. And then I've got two YouTube channels, Latendresse Media Collective and Outdoor Cameraman Experience. So yeah, so those are all my platforms. And if you want to come check us out, then please come subscribe.
Awesome. And before we head off, if you could give everyone one video, your favorite video or film, that they could watch to kind of see your stuff, what would it be?
Probably it's kind of outdated now in terms of my edit skills, but the one video that really changed my life was one that I call Frank the Tank. And I was filming a guy up on Kodiak Island in Alaska. We were predator calling Kodiak brown bears, and it was an 11-day hunt. It was a struggle. And on the last day, our outfitter Sam Fegis called in the third largest brown bear ever taken with a bow and arrow, and the hunter shot it at 7 yards. And the footage, I shot it with a 400 millimeter zoom lens. That particular video changed my life because it went viral, and then bigger things just started happening in the big game world.
Awesome.
You can
All
check
right.
that out on my YouTube channel, Latendresse Media Collective. Go check it out.
Sweet deal. Yes, I think I saw the photo from that on your Instagram, so
Mhm.
I'll definitely be checking that out as well. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us on the live stream, and thanks, Jake, for coming on. Appreciate your time and all your information, and that's all we got for tonight, guys. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Jordan. See ya.